Hey friends, welcome to Wednesday nights. As you'll see in the background, this is what happens when you let wild animals into your home. They do crazy stuff. So maybe it's just the heat and it's just everybody's stir crazy. But I'm here. Shout out to our Wednesday night small group and to all of you who join us. Glad that we're a family that can get together on Wednesday nights in the middle of the week to celebrate Jesus, to learn together, to grow together. I want to remind you why we do this. As we said, as part of our church, prayer, study, the commitment to living out the Bible in the context of community will be our foundation. We'll grow, we'll be accountable, we'll mentor others through discipling relationships. And then as an extent of that, we'll dedicate our time, energy, resources to spread the gospel, to make Jesus known and follow Jesus in being kind, gracious, loving, and truthful. That's what we're kind of encapsulates who we are as a church and what we're trying to do. So I want to remind you of that. And I think we'll jump right into our list tonight. So hello, everyone, and let's do this. So found a list this week of things that make people absolutely furious. I'm actually not going to show you the pictures because some of them were very inappropriate, and I didn't want to just go through and have to do a bunch of editing. Hi, Terry Lee. Terry Lee just got back from the Shine conference with some of our ladies, heard some very exciting stories. It sounds like everyone had a great time. I'm headed to Warrior Conference tomorrow with 3 of our guys, and we're going to have a great time as well. AJ's here. So, yes, things that make people absolutely furious. So the premise of this list is that anger is a natural and to some extent even healthy emotion, which is true. The Bible says, be angry and don't sin. So there is anger that can be righteous. There's anger that can be okay. But once it goes over the top and causes us to be furious, that's no good. So these are some things that other people do that really make people angry. Just to be clear, this is not my list. I got this list from the interwebs and did not put this together. Thank you. Glad you had a good time. And we are super pumped for this week as well. So it should be good. Shining Warriors, don't want to miss it. Put it on your calendar. We're going to have a church calendar for 2024, and those are going to be the first 2 things on there for May of 2024. We're excited about that. All right, so things that make other people really angry. People in other states and at other churches, not Brookridge. People who don't use their signal lights at very important times. That can be very disturbing and angering. Let people know where you're going. And don't necessarily let people know where you're going like way before. There's a balance between having your signal light on for a half a mile and putting it on a split second before you actually turn. Both of those things are can be dangerous. Okay, moving on. People walking into the room and not closing the door when it was closed at the time they walked in. It's like leave the place like you left it. Or when you come into a room, like leave it, or at least ask, say, hey, you want me to close this door? Again, this is not my list. Stepping into something wet with socks on. Yeah, that's kind of gross. I can understand how that would be disturbing. I don't know about furious, but I was taking out the trash today and the trash bag leaked and then I stepped in it with my bare foot. I can't say that I was furious, but it was super gross. So yeah, this could be bad. People who block grocery aisles apparently make other people nervous. And that, not nervous, people angry doesn't make people nervous. And this goes along with the next one. People act like they're the only person who exists in the world. So I get it. Sometimes you're looking at all the different cereals and you just kind of lose yourself, or in the ice cream aisle, and someone is patiently waiting behind you to get into the ice cream freezer and get their ice cream. So just be aware of your surroundings. Another one was getting my head hit. Instant anger, no matter what it was. And the example was when you drop your phone on your face. I don't know if you've ever done that before, but I think that could be painful, and the anger rises up within you. People failing to accept ownership of their actions. Yeah, I mean, that can be frustrating, I would say. I don't want to go straight to furious with this, but that's what we do at Brookridge. We get frustrated, but we don't go straight to furious. People failing to accept ownership of their actions. How about people failing to mention important details when giving you a task, then getting mad when you have trouble understanding what they want you to do? That's a tough one, especially at maybe your place of employment. Let's be clear. Let's communicate well so that there's nothing up in the air, and so that expectations get met. A lot of our frustrations in this world, let's be honest, are from unmet or unfulfilled expectations. So the clearer we can be in communicating, the less disappointed we'll be in each other. How about people blasting music in public? The comment was, we don't want to hear your music. Get headphones. I was walking down the street in the middle of Boston on Monday night, and some guy just had his music blaring and didn't care if anybody else wanted to hear it or not. Everybody was hearing it. This was not my list. Remember that. How about somebody telling you seem stressed? Like, even if you're not, you will be after that comment. Oh, man. Or somebody telling you, oh, you look like you don't feel well. And then all of a sudden I'm just like, wait, do I not feel well? Oh, yeah, my head kind of hurts a little bit. My throat's scratchy. Before I was 100 before you said something. But same thing with stressed. Like, are you stressed today? Well, I wasn't, but now I'm a little stressed. Littering can make people very angry. I think we've talked before about the Dunkin' Donuts cups outside the car. I'm a Starbucks guy, so there's nothing worse than going to Starbucks, opening my door, and finding somebody's Dunkin' Donuts cup right there. Or worse, they dump it out in the parking space, and I'm stepping out into your iced coffee from yesterday. Gross. I actually asked the Starbucks baristas if they like it when people just dump out their stuff, because some people could say, hey, you know what, we're just letting go back to the environment. It's just like throwing a banana peel out the window. So the problem of doing it at Starbucks in the parking lot is that it attracts bees in the summer. So Starbucks baristas will call you out if you do that in the drive-through line. Also, they can see you in the drive-through line and hear you. People don't know that. They have all these conversations while you're in the drive-through line. They can hear everything you say. A lot of times they can see you. That's Brian Spicer. Speaking of seeing you, I see you, my friend. That's Brian Spicer, and I have coffee at Starbucks almost every Tuesday morning. Fun fact. So littering. AJ was driving behind a kid that was very erratically driving and then just started throwing trash out of his window. Like, cups and napkins and all kinds of things just flying out. That is, Brookridge Community Church does not condone that sort of behavior, and it could make people furious. Here's one: people allowing their children to run wild in any establishment, especially restaurants. That could make people upset. Again, not my list. I got this list from the internet, but I was not allowed to run wild in restaurants when I was a kid. Oh, it's a changing world. How about pop-up ads? I don't know that anybody likes pop-up ads. Like, you're just in the middle, you're just trying to read an article, and then all of a sudden, even on the Bible program that I use, there's pop-up ads. Like, and what they're trying to do is make you buy some sort of subscription to get rid of the ads, but I refuse to do that. So deal with the pop-up ads. How about this one? I think this shows that I'm getting older, maybe, but maybe this bothers other people too. Obscenely loud cars and motorcycles. Nobody thinks you're cool outside of your car or bike buddies when you like rev your motorcycle up for no reason at all, and it's like deafening, and then you just peel out and leave. It's like, oh yeah, you're so cool, buddy. Please don't do that. People refusing to have a discussion without insults or yelling, really rampant these days. Again, this is not my list, and this is not a Brookridge Community Church list. This is just some things that make people furious. How about this? Yes. I figured, Mom, same thing. Loud motorcycles, loud cars. It's just, there's no reason for it. How about this? A broken yolk when you want to make over easy eggs. How disappointing is that? Again, wouldn't go straight to anger and furious, but very disappointing when you break the yolk when you're trying to get a nice runny egg. Ugh, horrible. People say the deteriorating quality of goods and services. Big corporations are trying to make more money, so they make things break, right? Like your old Maytag dishwashers or Whirlpool washer and dryers that used to last forever. Not anymore. Like, they're made to break every 4 or 5 years to keep the economy going. The comment was, I wonder how things might be if CEOs were somehow forced to use their own company's product over any kind of competitor or substitute. Ooh, shots fired. How about loud chewing? This, again, was not my list. I'm just reading off a list of things that people put out there that make people furious. Loud chewing is one of the things that could do that. If you see someone saying or doing something offensive and call them out, and then they instantly attack you or play the victim to make you look like the bad person, that happens a lot on social media. But yeah, that can be a challenging time for everybody. So the moral of the story is, let's not be angry people. Let's not be furious people. But one way that we do that is we have an awareness of what's going on in the world, be kind, be considerate of the people around us, and we make this world a better place. There you go. Let's jump back into James. And so the reason we're going through this, people ask, so this is a sort of a flyover of James. We're going to get into some things, but we're not necessarily going to get into everything. Same thing with, we're jumping into the minor prophets on Sunday. So on Sundays, we're going to be in the minor prophets for the next couple of months or so. And then on Wednesdays, we're going to be in James. So you're going to get hit from both sides, because the minor prophets did not spare any words. James doesn't spare any words. But the idea of this isn't necessarily to go super deep into God's word on Sundays and Wednesday, where you're just listening to me and then don't do anything with that. The idea is we use this for our small group in Bradford. This is supposed to generate questions. And if there's something where you feel like, man, we kind of skimmed over that verse, I'd love to talk to somebody about it. We have a community for that, so we can get together and talk about things and learn and grow together. So I'm going to give you a decent amount of information, but I'm not necessarily looking to go word by word through the book of James or through the minor prophets, but we're looking to get your mind thinking, get your heart stirred by what God says in his word, and then we look to grow together. And there's some people who want to go deeper in God's word, and we want to give opportunities to do that. So that's all I have to say about that. We're in the first chapter of James, if you remember, and we were in verses 2 through 12. So we're talking about the testing of your faith. And last week we were talking about suffering and why God makes us go through trials of various kinds. And we said that James told Christians that we would endure pain, that trials would come so we could endure more trials, so that we would get steadfastness and patience, and then that we would be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And then he said, if any of you lack wisdom. So this got tied to wisdom. So the idea was, we go through things in our lives. We live in a broken world. We live around broken people, and we go through things, some that we bring on ourselves, some that have nothing to do with us at all, but we go through suffering and trials. And James is trying to say this can provide us with wisdom. And that's where we kind of left off. We said that God will put us in painful situations. We talked about the temperaments of people, how it's like that we're not born wise. We're born that 2/3 of the time we're going to make the wrong decision in a situation. And that's why God gives us parents, right? Shout out to parents, that we have to learn wisdom, that we aren't born with this abundance of wisdom. We have to learn it. And God will put us in painful situations, in places where we feel overwhelmed, where suddenly we have to learn a different way to respond, an appropriate way to act. Pain forces us to seek wisdom. And so that's why James was saying we can rejoice in the middle of pain, because we can know, if I use this pain correctly, if I allow God to work it in my life, then I'll be wise, I'll live better, I'll be somebody who navigates in the world well. So the question we're going to answer today is, what exactly does wisdom give us? It's 3 things, then we're done. 3 kinds of wisdom that will characterize your life if you learn to navigate pain well. Here it is. In the midst of pain, wisdom will keep you from putting your hope in things that fade. The wisdom we get from pain is the wisdom to stop putting our hope in things that fade. We're not meant for this world alone. And what I mean by that is, we're meant for this world, but this world is not our home. It's not our end goal. And that's what we get in verses 10 and 11. You'll see, and the rich exalts in his humiliation, because like a flower of the grass, he will pass away. For the sun rises with its scorching heat and withers the grass. Its flower falls, and its beauty perishes, so also will the rich man fade away in the midst of his pursuits. When nothing is going wrong, we as human beings start to chase after, identify with, exalt in, and revel in things that will naturally fade. That's our natural inclination. We get a skewed view of reality, and we start to obsess over things that won't last, like money. And then we neglect the things that are important in life, and like what's happening with life, what's happening with the people around us, the big questions, the fact that we're all going to die, the fact that there's eternity. We forget that because we're obsessed with things. And the truth is, if you're going to be wise, you can't be locked up here. We need to see how reality works. And the reality is, still to this day, the death toll on our planet is 1 per person. It's coming. There's pain in the world. It's real. But if you're not experiencing any pain, you can get locked in and obsessing about your stuff, identifying with it, letting it own you, building your whole life around something that will fade. And it's a mistake. So God brings pain, and the wisdom it will give will make us turn loose from setting our hopes on things that won't last. Beauty fades, right? Remember years ago, Sylvester Stallone, his career was stalling out a little bit. So he decided to take a role in a movie called Copland. And he had to pack on like 40 pounds of pure fat. So he ate nothing but wedding cakes, literally. And he found out that he had put way too much of his sense of self-worth in his muscles. He was apologizing to people for how he looked. He was disgusted by himself. He realized he'd given far too much significance to his appearance. So he said later on, when I lost it, I didn't look good anymore. He said, I wasn't just discouraged, I was devastated. But the pain and discomfort taught him that he has hopes in something that doesn't last. We know that's a mistake. That's no good. Maybe you learned that when you got from high school to college. You went from the top of the food chain, maybe the most popular, athletic, intelligent people, to being a freshman in college, where nobody cares that you were the big person on campus in high school. Some of you, it was a fantastic thing because you had a bad high school experience and you're like, do over. Others of you may have had this big bout of depression. You were devastated because you built an empire of attention and worth and significance, and it was gone. So don't obsess over things that don't last. That's why James is warning the rich person, don't get too pumped up about your wealth. Don't chase something like money because it's like a flower. It will fade, and so will you. So if you obsess about those things, like chasing it, grabbing things and stuff, making them define your self-worth, it's a mistake because it fades. So God, like a good father that he is, will slap our hands when we become consumed with something that's bad for us. He's a good dad who says, don't do that. So pain in our lives can be something we rejoice in because it saves us of making the mistake of putting way too much hope in something that will fade. All right, so that's one thing that wisdom gives us. Second thing that wisdom gives us is it teaches us that pain is real, but it's temporary. So when we're experiencing pain, the wisdom it provides is that this pain is very real, but it's also temporary. So we can rejoice in pain because we know it's not forever. Verse 9 says, let the lowly brother boast in his exaltation. If your life is tough, be encouraged because the toughness doesn't last forever. There's something beyond those painful days. There's something glorious in the future for those of us who know and love Jesus. Verse 12 says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life. There's life beyond enduring pain. Don't worry about it. The wisdom you can get from this pain is knowing that you have a glorious future. The pain is temporary. If that doesn't make sense to you, you're like, man, you're telling me that pain right now teaches me that pain is not forever. Like, how does that work? If anything, it should be the other way, right? When somebody goes through an inordinate amount of pain or a great deal of suffering, they lose their faith in God. They lose their faith in eternity, in something beyond this world. They say, all I see is destruction. All I feel is pain. All this is worthless. There's nothing but darkness forever. And they rage against the darkness because it's all that they see and feel. So the question could be asked, how can you tell me that suffering now teaches me that there's a world beyond where there is no suffering? That this pain is temporary, but there's something glorious beyond it. How can you tell me pain teaches me that? Let me try to explain it this way. The philosopher Pascal said, you never see anybody complaining that they lack a second mouth. Never see anybody complaining that they only have one mouth. That's true. I've never had anybody set up an appointment with me and say, Russ, will you pray for me? I only have one mouth. I'm angry at God. I don't understand it. I feel cheated. It's killing me inside. It doesn't happen, right? Why not? Because it's not even an option. Not an option. We've never seen somebody with two mouths. We don't expect two mouths. It's not realistic. Well, then why do we rage against suffering? Why do we rage against pain when it's all this world knows? It's the only common denominator among humanity. Not everybody gets joy, particularly all the time. Everybody gets pain. How can we look around at pain and say, this is wrong? It shouldn't be this way. Why do we do that? Why do, as human beings, we know it's not right? Because we can conceive there's something in us. The Bible calls it eternity in our hearts. We can conceive of a place where it's not this way, where it wasn't always like this, and it won't always be like this. The pain we experience, we can rage against because it shouldn't be this way. Things should be perfect and holy and good, but we couldn't conceive that if it wasn't a possible reality. So atheists will say, there's nothing but pain, so there is no God. But the very reason they're raging against pain shows you there's something beyond it. The very anger about your pain is proving that this pain is an anomaly and there is a world without pain. And James says you endure because you know as you endure, it will give you a vision of that crown of life, that there is life in the future. There's a hope beyond suffering. That's the wisdom that pain can give you. When you go through pain, it purifies the mind to understand these things that I'm grabbing, money, wealth, attention, they don't last, they fade. And then wisdom says this pain will fade. There's something glorious in the future. And that's a reason to rejoice. Last thing wisdom gives us through pain is this. Wisdom will turn your head upward so you put your hope in God. Verse 12 says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. The reason why you can be joyful when your life hurts, when somebody walks away, when that won't get fixed, when this won't heal, when it seems like all these horrible things are happening to you, the reason you can have joy in the midst of trials is because you know this trial, if used correctly, will give me wisdom. Wisdom to know not to grip onto things that will fade, not to despair because we know that there's something beyond. And then we can rejoice because pain forces us to look up and see there's somebody bigger than my circumstances. And I'd sure like to meet him, right? Pain turns our head toward God. It makes you deal with God, and not just deal with God, but love him. Because the reality is when you step back from your small story and look at the big story, there is a wonderful God who did make us beautiful. He made this world right and pristine and glorious. Read about it in Genesis 1, but then sin entered, a breaking with God, and everything got damaged. So the world is not as it should be, and we are right to rage against the darkness and the pain. It's not how it was supposed to be. The world is not as it should be, and we're right to rage against the dark. And yet our God is so wonderful that he doesn't leave us in pain. Jesus Christ entered this world, and you can see the Son of God, Jesus Christ, walked among us, and you can see his love, that he was generous even to the most sin sick and broken of people. You can see his wisdom that confounded the sages and the wise men of the day and confounds us still. You can see his justice, his sense of truth, his righteousness, that he declares what is right, but he managed to do it in a gracious way. You could see the perfection that we all long for was in Jesus. And then you see him step onto a cross and take a bunch of trials far more brutal and far worse than we could or will ever endure. And we learn that he did this for us. The pain and the suffering that we have caused, he endured the punishment for it, that we might come to know God again. And you'll see that God has done something glorious. He took the pain of this world and he sent his son, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. God took the instrument of death and he twisted it. He sent his son to death, but then he used death to bring back life, to bring his son to life and to bring us back to God. So our God is so glorious that he will take this world, he will take even pain, even darkness, even murder on a cross, and he will use an implement of death to become the implementation, the instrument of our rescue, of our reconnection with God. And when you see that, God will take pain and suffering and make life out of it through Jesus. Then you can say in your own life, I don't understand all the reasons why I'm going through this pain right now, but I know the God who does, and he is glorious and he is true. Pain is not the end, but rather Jesus came to take on pain and make it into life. And he could take my pain and yours and make it into life if we just let him. And as we realize that, as that settles in, you begin to love God. And you begin to see your trials and your suffering as something you can rejoice in, not because you know all the reasons why you're enduring it, but because you know him. He takes pain and he makes it glorious if you trust him. That is the joy that pain can give you. There's a quote from Johnny Erickson Tada, who became a quadriplegic after a diving accident as a teenager. She said, "Jesus, you said in this world we would have trouble. There's a lot of trouble in being a quadriplegic. But you know what? The weaker I was, the harder I leaned on you. And the harder I leaned on you, the stronger I discovered you to be. Thank you," she says, "for the bruising blessing. It was a severe mercy. Thank you." This is from someone that, from a teenager, was never able to, like quadriplegic, in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. And she's saying thank you. I'll end this part of the study with a quote from a Christ follower named Lana, just before cancer claimed her life. She said, "What if we all began to see our suffering, be it physical, emotional, relational, as a bruising blessing, a severe mercy, that our scars all reminding us of God's sovereignty? Yes, when we live our lives in complete submission to our Creator, we can look at each and every scar as a sovereign, sanctifying scar, a scar that, because of God's complete sovereignty and his ability and his desire to rid us of our sin, helps to lead us into the enjoyment of having a right relationship with God. Therein lies the true blessing of being bruised. Its blessing is found in the deep, indescribable relationship that develops between you and God as you trust him, as you lean on him. He will turn your valley of trouble into a valley of springs. That's the encouragement in James. I know this is deep. I know trying to look at pain is tough. We don't like to talk about suffering because it's tough. And God never asks us to just say, you know what? Oh no, just ignore it. Just walk through it. No, it's not supposed to feel good. Pain's not supposed to feel good. Trials and suffering are not supposed to feel right, because this world is broken. But we look to God and we have hope in the midst of pain. We know that this world is not the end. God gives us wisdom in the middle of pain, and he brings us closer to him so that we can make him known in our lives. That's a big deal. We get the chance to do that. And sometimes when our focus gets shifted to where it's not supposed to be, where we get really tied up in things that are here and won't last, God will give us a little front end alignment, a lot of times with pain, to get us refocused on the things that really matter, which is our relationship with him, our relationship with others. The only thing that we bring into eternity are the relationships that we had and the people that we led to Jesus. So pain has a purpose. So it doesn't mean we don't pray that God will relieve it. It doesn't mean that we don't pray that God will heal and provide and mend relationships. But in the meantime, this is when God works patience into our lives. God works wisdom into our lives. And he wants us to rely on him through it all, and each other. That's why he gave us a community. We all don't go through the same things at the same time. So that's why it's really important that you have people who have your back, who can hold you accountable when you need it, who can comfort you and give you encouragement when you need it. And I am so grateful for the community of people that God's called together at Brookridge. I am grateful for our network churches and network pastors who encourage me and encourage us. And God has given us everything we need to flourish and walk with him in a way that makes him look good, gives him glory, and ultimately is for our good as well. All right, that's gotten through James 1 verse 12 now. Again, we could probably spend a year just on James chapter 1. There's so much in here, but I would love for you, if you're looking to go even deeper, to start getting in some groups, start getting into some conversations with some people that you can study together and go deeper. And this is just the tip of the iceberg on what we find in God's word. But it's good stuff, and it gives life to us. So let me pray for you. I'll let you go. God, I ask that particularly anybody who's experiencing a difficult time right now. I ask that you would bring comfort. I ask that you bring peace. I ask that you would let your spirit be so real. Your spirit dwells in our hearts for those that follow you. And I ask that you would be real to those who need it today. I pray for those who need physical healing. I pray for those who need emotional healing or relational healing, who need provision, who need guidance. God, you provide all those things for us. So we look to you, we rely on you, and let us live for the things that really matter. Let us invest in your kingdom. Let us invest in people. And let us be a church community that brings honor to you and takes care of each other. We love you. Thank you. In your name, amen. We'll see you all on Sunday. We're going to talk about Hosea, minor prophets. Get pumped. We'll talk to you all soon.